The silver price is gearing up for a massive week kicking off in about 24 hours because once again, as we've been predicting right here on this channel, the world is going into a more chaotic tailspin. So we're going to talk about the big updates that are happening in the world. Greenland. Who's going to acquire Greenland? Is it going to stay with Denmark, or will Trump potentially acquire Greenland? What's the impact going to be on the precious metals? And what are the other important things you need to know if you're holding, precious metals, gold, silver, anything else right now in the space, because things are looking volatile and there are some very, very important things that you need to be aware of that we're going to cover off in this video. So if you enjoy it, get value out of it, like, subscribe to the channel so you get the next update, you don't miss that. Let's get straight into it. So first thing I want to point out is people are pointing out over on X that physical silver is exploding in China. So we're seeing sales of silver for $119 in China as supply becomes scarce. In the US paper market, the current price is around $90. The system is breaking fast. Silver is going to teleport to $1,000. That is according to Shibo right here over on X. I can't verify it, but he has put his pictures right here. And I have to say, look, I think the case for physical silver is extremely strong because we are heading into a world at the moment. It is just going, a little bit crazy. So last week there was a huge amount of focus on Iran. Was there going to be a huge conflict right over here with Iran? Was this going to be the next government to fall? And now the focus is now switched over to Greenland, and it's actually a fight between, traditional allies, the US and also Europe. And we actually do have some breaking intel, and you're actually having European military personnel. They are arriving in Greenland. So just imagine being these guys. There's not many of them, but just imagine stepping onto the cold, ground of Iceland, and your job is potentially to try and defend this against a potential Trump takeover. Not saying that the US is going to military, strike Greenland or anything like that, but it would just be you almost feel a little bit powerless being one of these guys, because you can't really do much, to be honest with you, especially if the US does decide to invade Greenland and take it over. But there are some troops from the EU arriving in Greenland right now. So why is this going to play an important role for silver? So you have to understand, and we'll talk more about this geopolitical update soon, but look, as the world gets more chaotic, you have to understand that there is going to be a breakdown in trust, not only in the fiat system with US national debt going to the moon, and also it's not just the US national debt, guys, it's all the national debts of all the countries. Governments of all the countries are almost, acting against the interests of the people. So you have this monetary debasement, and also at the same time, these countries, even though it does look like there's a conflict between the US and the EU and this, you have to also understand, even within those countries themselves, within the USA, within the EU, citizens are not happy either. So these countries are all internally imploding, even though there might be conflicting against different countries externally. The internal dynamics of France, Germany, Poland, USA, guys, it's all crumbling the fall of Rome to some degree, in a little bit of slow motion, but that's the way I honestly kind of see the world right now. And the great thing is, silver, physical, silver, battle tested, silver, limited in supply. Supply is actually shrinking if those if the facts are true about this. And again, it's an asset, unfortunately, but I do say fortunately at the same time, that does tend to go very, very well when there are chaotic winds blowing around in the world, and that's exactly what we're seeing. So I think this week, the big focus will be on exactly how how Greenland and EU and US play out right now. So Trump is now imposing tariffs on these countries. So Finland, France, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, United Kingdom, they're getting tariffs right now. And then in addition to that, they go to 25% on June the 1st if a deal to acquire Greenland is not reached. So Trump is pretty much strong-arming his way to getting Greenland right here. So it's absolutely huge what's playing out here. And again, this is just one spot fire on the globe now, Greenland. So you can see the response from Keir Starmer, who is a terrible leader anyway. I don't really have that much respect for this guy with the amount of, anti-freedom of speech. He locks up his own citizens, etc. But he says right here, our position on Greenland is very clear. It is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and its future is a matter for the Greenlanders and the Danes. We also have made clear that the Arctic security matters for the whole of NATO, and allies should all do more together to address the threat from Russia across different parts of the Arctic. Apply tariffs on allies for pursuing the collective security of NATO allies is completely wrong. We will, of course, be pursuing this directly with the US administration. So that's the response coming out of the UK and probably the rest of the European leaders right now. And this is just one part of the globe that is now a flashpoint. And you have to remember, look, this is just going to be a wild ride that is just brewing around in the world. So remember, this is Greenland this week is the big focus. Last week was Iran. Remember, the deal with Iran, this is not over. So don't think because there wasn't missile strikes last week against them that, so there's going to be peace forever. This region is still going to be chaotic. And I do think in time, eventually, war will break out once again over on Iran. I think the war with, Russia is only going to get intensify with time. And also, eventually, there'll be this, very, very powerful conflict with China. And I think China is almost like the final, what was the final boss? But like it's the most competent ally to face against for the US. And the reason I say that is because out of all these countries, China has the most manpower, and they've actually done war games in which, China versus USA, what would happen to the US naval fleet? And, within 30 seconds, this is coming out of the Pentagon as well, China would actually sink all the US Navy aircraft carriers. And it's because they have very high tech, they got very strong missiles, and they're not dumb. It's not a dumb people. Like, you're not versing people with, just no infrastructure, no air force. This is a very, smart country. And it's just the way the world is kind of going right now. And that is why, I think silver, again, it's in a great place long term. So if we have a look at some fundamental silver prices, and we'll talk a little bit more geopolitics before we wrap up today's video, but you can see $90. So holding on very, very well right here. So $90 level. As this world gets more crazy, I expect the silver price to potentially appreciate as people just move. They trust, metal, silver, stronger than they do other types of assets that are, might not perform as well during these volatile times. You can see also, platinum is doing well, copper is doing well, gold's doing well. So a lot of the precious metals, I think, are very, very hot. This is going to be a trending year for explosive year for precious metals. Again, not financial advice. I'm just kind of documenting what's on my mind right now. So watch out for this week. Potentially we could get even more of an explosive breakout. We could potentially see another all-time high coming up sooner than you think, which is going to be exciting. And I do think, look, the next barrier to try and get to for silver will be $100. Remember, these psychological barriers, and we've seen this play out in different markets, cryptocurrency markets, other markets, but once you get to like this level, sometimes the price chart can be like this because it gets highly, highly manipulated. So it attempts to break it, but then because of the manipulation, it gets kind of pushed down continuously. So if we can capture $100, set up a foundation, that's going to be, a nice operating base to potentially really then, silver could go very, very high, very, very long term. So again, you look at the long-term price chart for silver. Yes, it is going parabolic like this, but also you have to understand you can actually use this in the world in the future. So the reason I say that is, when the world does, if it does crumble, right? So if all this stuff does become very bad, so there are, national conflicts, right? Internal conflicts in countries, precious metals, it's been around for like 5,000, more than that years, so it is the ultimate kind of safe haven during these, volatile times. And that's why I think it has a very, very strong case. But also, again, remember, you can use this in like the future economy. You can use it in the solar panels, you can use it in batteries, you can use it in military use. So there's actually a lot of things you can do with silver, gold, platinum, copper. So it's very, very exciting times. That's a major update for today. If you guys got value out of it, that's what you need to watch out for this week. All eyes are going to be on this conflict. Greenland, that's the one for this week. But also we'll keep our eyes peeled for all the other things as well and how they can play out in the silver market, because things, again, getting crazy. I really appreciate you tuning in. Subscribe for the next update. See you in the next one. Economic Zeus signing out.